Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us here today on a Friday. Let's just begin. I want to respect your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for focusing on permaculture. And yeah, folks are zooming in from Tennessee, Guatemala, Rome, Georgia. Had me at Rome. I was like, Rome, Italy, right, right. Georgia, Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Illinois, California, Oregon, California again and again, Alberta, Canada, Florida again, or another California, Tennessee, Kansas. Wow. Oregon, Arizona, Utah. It keeps going and going and going. Thank you for being here. And this is a real treat because it's a kind of a full circle moment. This has been a journey I've been on in the public eye for 10 years, but I've been following permaculture, trying to implement permaculture and live permaculture more and more for much longer than that. And so I'm really excited to dive into why, how, and what, because it's all my success is tied up in this, what we're going to learn today and what we're going to learn throughout this webinar series. So all the time I spent, all the studying, all the implementation, all the successes and all the recalibrations and all the different things that have led me to this day have flowed through the lenses that we're going to be talking about in this webinar series. And I'm going to link it together so you can see it for yourself. Hey, Rich, do you want to co-host? And you can yes, thank you. Everybody thank Rich. Rich is one of the leaders in the creation of regenerative soil database. So that's huge thanks to Rich just for today, but also just in general. He's a wonderful man and a huge help. So yes, thank you, Rich, indeed. Oh, it's so wonderful seeing all the comments. Thank you for being here. All right, so for so many of us getting into permaculture, we stumble into permaculture because we're just trying to grow our own abundance. And that's what today is about. Because uh, this means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? Growing your own abundance. And we're going to get into why that, and how. And so let's just start because obstacles do really exist. Most of the land bought by permaculture people, most of the homesteaders are buying marginalized or beaten up land. That makes sense because the land that is prime growing land has already been figured out and bought and sold many times over. And so we are looking at marginalized land for the most part that people are either healing or breaking new ground on or somewhere in between. And so these obstacles will exist for you, for everyone, and even farmers, right? Because that's been sold so many times, been beaten up so much that they're in a remediation position too. So when, I talk about soil and how there's all these problems and everything, that's ubiquitous. Okay, because the farming soils have been beaten up, and then all the marginalized land is all that's affordable too. So these obstacles do exist, and permaculture is how we fix things and address them. So I want to start off today with my first food forest because it's something that I did and I made a lot of mistakes and figured out a lot of things by following permaculture. Okay. And it's not something that is complicated. It's not something that is mysterious, but it's something that unless you understand the pieces and why and the logical succession that occurred, you won't see it. So we're going to go through it. So I was in Central Valley, California. If you know that area, it's hot. Okay. It's dry. It's a brittle Mediterranean temperate climate. So this is the place where there's all those fires, bark beetle damage. This is obviously after a fire. I figured out that these turn into heat traps. They're black, and so they trap a lot of heat and they conduct it down into the ground, drying out the ground even more. And if you look closely, you do not see pine trees growing anywhere, or Douglas fir or anything like that. You see scrub oak and grasses and weeds. And you can see it here on the large scale. You can see clearly that there's a difference in color between, well, you can see through the areas that have burned, right? And then it's dead. And then you see the reddish areas. Those are bark beetle kills. So they're all been killed by bark beetles. And then there's the green patches, and there's like a couple clumps of green, but it's being encroached upon by the bark beetle, and then the fires follow it up. So this is where I cut my teeth. And the soil was like this, and that's oxidized and alkaline, right? And it's decomposed granite. And in the full sun, just like John Kemp was talking about this last week, it's funny he chose 140 degrees as his number. He's probably going through my book right now. We're good friends. So John Kemp is talking about how the surface of soil can easily hit 140 degrees. That was my experience. And that was the Sierra Nevadas. And this is what they did with their water. They once had the largest body of fresh water east of the Mississippi, and they drained it to for King Cotton, for a business, government and business working together. That's what the definition of fascism is. And so the California government worked with businesses to steal the water, destroy local communities, and dry out all the foothills in such a way that they now just are not perennial burning and low fire burning like the way it was originally managed. Now we have catastrophic fires that destroy like Paradise City in, 4 hours. So it's really something that is a tragedy. It is something that is entirely preventable, and we need to apply, key line design, earthworks, reforestation, and soil protection. All these different kind of things for these areas to reincorporate water into the landscape again, recharge the aquifers, recharge the entire landscape so it holds a lot more water, then becomes not fireproof because the pyrophytic. We need the low burning fires that can't get out of control, and the trees don't die. They just are actually stimulated by the fire, actually, because there's enough water in the landscape. It's just really that simple. So anyway, I could go on a tangent on that. I lived, in California for so many years, over a dozen years, and that was a huge part of like why I left is because there was no action because it was, government mandated. And so you kept going up against all these roadblocks, and they understood the problem and they held the roadblocks in place. So I got burned out of our home. Fire was down by the road. We were up on the hill, mountain, depending on how you define those things, right above it. And so we thought we were going to lose everything, and that's really really hard on the kids. And so we left. And so anyway, this is the beginning of the story though. And so I started by creating earthworks to hold more water. And in a miniature, I did what needs to be done to the whole landscape. So we need to hold water, sink water. That's what a swale does. It puts it flat. It's just a flat on contour catchment. And you soak water back in. Very, very simple, elegant, and true. That's the thing is these true principles of permaculture are life changing because you can you can lean on them with all your weight. They're as solid, they're the bedrock of they're the natural principles and they're immutable. So I put it flat, see like there, you know what I mean? A little to hold the water in. I did cover crops and I covered them with mulch, a little bit too mulch. You gotta learn. You gotta learn. I did cardboard in the pathways. It was a process, right? I did this over 2 acres. So I've done over 2 acres of swale on a hill, and it's thousands and thousands and thousands of feet that we did. And there's mostly my sons and I did it, and they were this little when we did it, so they learned to dig early. Yeah, and I mean this is what it was. You see, it's all grass, but now it's all food. Yeah, when you disrupt and change the pH, you literally cause secession to happen. And so this beautiful scene arrived because I was just following permaculture. And you can just see like the color differentiation as the carbon sequestration happens and the soil builds up that darker color We're just bringing back soil and the richness of and the fertility of soil by bringing back plants and water. So people wonder why I had giant amaranth and all this stuff. It was alkaline oxidized soil that was I was improving. So it had and I went past it in succession. I went past this zone, but initially I had to go through it. So went through this zone with strength, and then it went more acidic, which made these things shrink, and other plants did better. You got to know your plants and the zones and the Goldilocks that they prefer. And so I had plants that were literally, remember, it was 140 degrees. Look, they're going over gravel. That was so hot. There's no way I could put my bare hand on that and just like let it be like there, it was hot. Plant didn't care. You can see that I did these swales so my sun's lower to the ground, and then on either side the actual growing areas are lifted. This differentiation caused a lot of drawdown of moisture and cooling. I did it everywhere. These are swales that drew water off the road so that the road became a way to channel moisture to places. And you can see that there was a serious changeover. Some areas, this is the first year of growth. The second year of growth is one where it's completely taken over. It took time. Todd Harrington, the famous Todd Harrington who helped set up Elaine Ingham's Soil Food Web initially in the 90s, who's been doing parts per million testing and biology testing side by side since the 90s, has the greatest amount of data and the most insight in the soil science world that I know of. He says it takes 3 years. So it was tracking like that, but you see the benefits for the stage you're in earlier, especially if you're planting, things that belong in that stage. So I was growing tons of food. I involved animals. This is Timothy and Walter. They're amazing. They're actually goats, not sheep. I worked a lot with goats. This is Callie. I raised Callie's twin girls, bottle feeding. They memorize my name, so they wake up in the morning and go, Matt, Matt. And I'd be like, Matt. So anyway, I loved my goats. I was a hand milker. And we had chickens, of course. And all of that fertility fed back into the gardens, right? Closed loop, a basic biodynamic concept, right? I know I don't do everything that biodynamic does. The things that work with permaculture and things that are provable, I think are cool. But it is true that organic and regenerative are both words coined by the creator of biodynamic, Steiner. And so just credit where credit's due, right? We got the history there. So this is what happened on year two. You can see that despite it going downhill, some of those corn are really, really tall. Okay. So I'm going to show you a little video, and you guys can kind of see with the movement, how dense it actually was. This is late in the summer, as you can see by all the surrounding area being white with dry, dead grasses. So it's a high albedo effect, you know. Um, all right, so let's just begin. See all that amaranth? Oh my gosh. That's where I did my mushrooms. I would do mushroom logs under that tree. This is where that corn was that everyone talked about, that big corn. And this is all that sorghum. That year they had so much sorghum. That's all Throsa. Yeah, I just disappeared, don't I? So yeah, and it it was an abundance, and I was throwing this seed on the ground. For a lot of people, that's like the wildest thing they've ever heard because they don't save seed and they don't train seed. I do. And in fact, because I do such high volume of seed when I do these things, I see like rogues come out, right? Like an albino amaranth. And then, painted mountain corn, I did a large amount. And then that crossed with the Peruvian and took on speckles. And so I was dealing with 140 degree soils. I was dealing with limited water. in terrible soil and wildlife pressure like you wouldn't believe. But swales, when they have the tall 12-foot, 16-foot height on the plants inside them, make it so they actually feel very uncomfortable going inside because they can't see anything outside and they hear so much noise from all the rustling and everything. Freaks them out. So the abundance created its own wildlife protection without any fences, and we're below Yosemite. So we're in an area where there's bobcats that ate 40 of my chickens one night. We have, you know, mountain lions that are stalking our children when they go out and play, and our dogs are defending them, and it was pretty wild, pretty wild. That's the foothills of California for you. And it was a pretty incredible place to raise my kids, actually. And so all I did was I added compost and compost tea, but a special form of compost and a special form of compost tea that I didn't understand at the time fully until retrospect. But that's the thing is I applied permaculture. So here we go. I planted nitrogen fixers and a huge diversity because that's one of the principles to bring in the nitrogen. Of course, you got to be really careful because the more nitrogen you bring in, if you do not have the right form and the right amount of carbon, you're just going to create an imbalance between your carbon and nitrogen ratios and then get rid of the carbon in the soil and gas it off. And you end up ruining your soil. So, got to be really careful with the release of nitrogen, like when you chop and drop, and flail mow and those kinds of things, because you can really disrupt the soil. So, you have to do a huge diversity. It's really key to do a huge diversity, and you got to mix in a balance. And I also used earthworks because I needed that water. I needed that flat train. And also, I trained seeds. So, this is me at the World Beat Center, and I am between the loquats and I'm throwing seed on the ground. Makeda Makosa is taking pictures of me, being like, "What is he doing?" Right? And I'm doing my thing. Afterwards, I told them with complete confidence, "There you go." They're like, "What do you mean, there you go?" And I'm like, "That'll all grow in." And they're like, "What?" And I just threw it on the ground. But that is the power of trained seeds. The first year you're training the seeds, you're not going to get everyone to grow. There's going to be a huge amount of failure, but the ones that survive save seed from them and then grow them next year because they will be resilient, they will be precocious, and they will grow for the most part on the surface on the ground. And so just by applying just good permaculture practice, when applying it to gardening, because we're adapting it to the place in the environment, right? Right. We're always adapting and becoming greater in harmony with the bioregional effects and bioregional climate we're in. You train the seeds to the environment by saving them. And then the next year they're like, oh no, I know what's gonna happen. And they behave completely different because just understand this. Your seed company is growing seeds in an area probably not like you. They're growing in an area where they can win, where they can grow a ton of seed. And a lot of them, like Baker Creek, are buying seeds from all over the world, even China, and they're selling them as if they're coming from Missouri, but they're not, right? And so you have to recognize that you have to adapt the seeds for them to to be your local seed and for them to perform properly. So many people are getting seeds from, places like, I'm not trying to pick on Baker Creek, but Baker Creek, and their peppers don't grow. Well, those peppers were grown in a different environment with different treatments than you're giving it. And so um, you need to adapt that seed and train it to your methods and your climate, and then you'll get totally different germination rates. So you have to train your seeds. This is really where my niche initially in this world was heirloom seeds. And that's why I became the spokesperson for Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. So I know so much about them. And yeah, it's been a journey since then. So I simply applied permaculture. Okay. And we're going to talk about what that means more, but I just want you to know that it wasn't it came very naturally through the progression of understanding. And so I want you to ask yourself, what if you started practicing permaculture? And let's say you've already taken a PDC. Let's say you've been doing permaculture for years and you're struggling. Some things don't work right. That's because of the way you were taught permaculture. That's because there's a missing piece. Because permaculture um, is that bedrock level of principles in nature. And so there's a reason why it doesn't work. And the way I teach from a first principles perspective and an advanced level, beginner to an advanced, you're gonna be able to see that. So I'm glad that you're here, regardless of where you're at, because I know you can start practicing permaculture no matter what level you're at a level that's efficacious and transformative. And then that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? So, wait, before I go any further, who am I? Well, I'm Matt Powers. I was a ski racer in New England growing up. That's why like permaculture topographic maps made so much sense to me because the places where there was the most water catchment and erosion was also the places that were steepest and on skis fastest. So I instantly knew the fastest areas were the areas where there was the greatest erosion and also fastest movement of water. So, so this is and what happened when I was 15 is I missed Junior Olympics by about that much, and someone I always beat on my squad beat me, and I shortly got knee surgery afterwards. I had screwed up my knee in the process of oh man, I can't even go into it, but it was one of the most it was the most painful thing in my life up until that point because I had started skiing at age 2, and free skiing and skiing itself was the thing I cared about more than racing. But I pushed so hard on racing, I cost myself all of it. And so, in pursuit of something that was like socially what everyone else wanted and everyone thought was the thing, I lost the actual thing, which was my relationship with nature and skiing in the mountains in this just raw way. And you may relate to that. And so, in pursuit of what the world wanted, I lost my world. And I threw myself into music, and I was training 8 to 9 hours a day. And so I just threw myself into music at that same rate. And within 2 years, I was playing with professionals. So I taught myself bass, and then I was playing with Saturday Night Live's drummer, the guy who plays with Paul Simon, Billy Joel, Sheryl Crow, Bob Dylan, like you name it. I got to play with him. There's Sean right there in the black hat, looking good, Sean. He's actually been on SNL's house band. He's the longest serving member of SNL since '93. So it's his gig. Everyone who knows him knows him. This is the day we met Billy Gibbons and then went on stage with him. I met my wife at this time period. I was this professional musician. I performed like an athlete. When I played on stage, I put off more. I put off energy to such a degree that I would always get hired or get paid top dollar. The touring musician, I brought that energy to the stage, as you could probably imagine. But when I met my wife, within 2 years after having our first son, she got cancer and lost her thyroid and did the radiation like the doctors said, because we do what we're told, I guess, at this point when we were young. And we regret this because 3 months later, she got another form of cancer. A month later, she got another form of cancer. So um, they literally lied to us and gave my wife more cancer. And when I confronted about it, they couldn't look me in the eye and were incredibly guilty. And I realized the only thing I had control of was what we put into our bodies. And so the cleaners, the soaps, the lotions, the food, the kinds of medicine, and where we lived in the environment that we were in. So wanted health care, and I also needed a steady job. And after much pressure and cajoling, my wife and someone who later on became the superintendent of my district uh, convinced me to try subbing, and I fell in love with teaching because the students weren't being taught anything in Madera and Fresno County. They were being taught a false education to prevent them from succeeding. And it was because I mean, I went to some of the best schools in America. I was really, really blessed in that way. My ski racing made it so that I could get into a top 40 boarding school on that. And then when I had knee surgery, they kind of were like, "Why are you here?" Yeah, and so it was awful. It was a very difficult time because I wasn't academically strong. And it actually took a leap going through that whole process, losing everything, and then realizing I had to leap. I went from study hall to second in my class, and so I was also taught one on one how to like write and do all these different things from people who had like 50-year long careers as writing teachers in private sessions, and so I was really blessed by strange circumstances to be taught really high level of information at a very young age. And it's what allowed me to succeed. I didn't learn anything really at NYU. I learned everything in high school, and NYU was just a joke. And so I applied all this stuff everywhere I went. And when I taught, when I was a student teacher, I brought an outline because I was like, you guys need to outline to do an essay. And they called it the powers outline. We're talking about a thesis, a topic sentence, three details, topic sentence, three details, topic sentence, three details, and a conclusion that restates the thesis and reflection of the topic sentence's points. You know, nothing big, nothing crazy. They'd never seen it before. Not even the teachers had seen it before. Imagine that. The teachers had never seen an outline. Just imagine that. So I felt like this deep burden, a responsibility, obligation to pay it forward. And that's what I did. And so I started teaching teachers how to teach without homework so they could authentically teach so that kids would get high scores on standardized tests without teaching to the test and without using homework because that's what real learning is. And so I became obsessed with real learning. I raised my kids up there in the mountains. James started writing very, very, very early on. He's he we raised our boys out in the woods, in the mountains, and in the garden. And so they grew up around nature. They grew up in nature. Even today, last night, James was talking about how we got to get back to nature. Texas doesn't have enough nature. And you can see the toesies of my little boy. Well, he's not so little now; he's this tall. Right there. So he was in the garden too with us. Yeah, it just was so much fun. They really got to see these examples in real time. They got to grow up in it. And it was such a wonderful way to raise children because they learn science from nature from the beginning, right? They're raising chickens and animals and goats, and the things are giving birth and, hatching eggs and science, right? And so I started mixing it all into English, and then the science department was like, "Hey, you're stepping on our toes here. We got some propaganda we got to put out." And I just stood my ground, and then they changed. And so I was teaching permaculture. I was teaching history because I was also credentialed as a history teacher. When I went to get my English credential, I decided I would just test out and see what I could do. And without even going to college for history, I tested through and passed the history as well. So I was mixing in history, food, English, communication, and then also presenting. So all the stuff I do with these presentations, I was teaching. And I started getting into seed saving, like we talked about initially, heirloom seeds. And it was permaculture that allowed me to do it all. And I turned it into a curriculum that made almost as much money as I made in an entire year after taxes. Yes, they pay teachers nothing in California. That's why you don't have good teachers there. And it went viral. And I had tried to become an author for so long. I'd given up for 10 years. And only when I turned to service, when I turned to writing just curriculum, just to teach, just in pure service, everything took off. And that's a lesson. That's people care. Okay. And that'll come up a little bit later, but I'm just telling you there's a reason. And that's why I'm so excited to talk to you this whole series about this, because there's a reason I was successful. And it starts here. It starts here. I pivoted from writing like clever science fiction, even writing music, music theory books, right? For guitarists, visual music theory books, to purely service at the highest level. And that's what this was. And it went all over the world. It was translated into multiple languages. And it was just an absolute honor. When I say, I've done over 24 different publications, like six of them, maybe seven of them are foreign language, right? So I worked with people all over the world. You might recognize some of these wonderful people. Became a public speaker. I was teaching in the classroom, 8 years, and then I became, well, in public school, I was teaching 8 years. Before that, I was teaching in private school music. So it's been this progression, and I started helping other organizations. I helped expand the food forest in San Diego Balboa Park for the World Beat Center. And I always show this because my boys are grown up, like and really grown up. So Oliver is sitting here, but Oliver is this tall. James is just as tall, and they've totally grown up. They understand this. They love this stuff. We talk about getting large scale land so that we can start doing large scale permaculture, large scale regenerative ranching, and heal the landscape with animals, and also so you can get back on the horse. And James is a jujitsu guy. That's him with the goat right there, GSP. And he's just doing amazing, incredible things. But his heart always goes back to the natural world and all those things. And yeah, I want to facilitate that as much as possible and give them those options. So if in the future you see us together riding horses and just these big open fields, and we're moving cattle in a holistic management grazing operation and making the soil better, and that, now you know why, right? And so in this process I become an author, and I was an educator, and I became an entrepreneur and a soil expert, a seed farmer, and a family guy. And it's been this incredible, incredible journey. All of it was to create a bridge to the regenerative future, because if we don't have marketable skills being taught in education, then we don't have workers and entrepreneurs and business leaders for the regenerative economy. So you actually don't get those things without that bridge. So I've been building it. I've been focused on it. And my whole thing is around rigor. So, like, there's a reason why this is cited and this is peer reviewed. There's a reason why there's a teacher's guide that partners with it. There's a reason why there's a teacher's guide that partners with this. They're standards based. They're designed specifically so that they immediately can go into public schools and they can get full credit as a science elective for either of those. It's the only way. It's the only way. No one's done it since I started doing it. I'm the only one doing this. Uh, it's still shocking to me 10 years in that I'm the only one doing standards-based education, but that is the case. And that's the only pathway to it being actually adopted in schools. You actually need to have it standard-based so that the teacher can look at the standard, look at the objective, look at the lesson elements, and also the assessment and the differentiation, and then align them. Because you ever been tested on something the teacher didn't teach you? She wasn't in alignment, or he wasn't in alignment with that. So for a professional educator, they need all those pieces to actually evaluate what they're doing is actually working and being learned. So for me, I couldn't understand how that hadn't been done for permaculture. And then I couldn't understand how, I can't even to this day understand how no one has followed up on this. And that's in America I'm speaking. There are people who have done work like this in Australia. Absolutely. Bravo. But in the process of doing this, I had to become a citizen scientist. And my original permaculture teacher now recommends my books. So I learned permaculture, my PDC I got in 2014 from Jeff Lawton, and now he recommends my books, which are niche down, no doubt, but they're in support of the community. So this again, in a microcosm, is a lesson as to what's possible with permaculture. The person that's the like global leader in teaching permaculture, for so long was Jeff Lawton. He taught me, and then I made an advanced program that is much longer, larger, and then in response, he made a longer and larger program. But of course, he kept it strictly around the PDC. I created the advanced PDC, which is making it real. But it's this conversation, this back and forth that I love about permaculture. There's this growth, there's this opportunity, and there's this, people are included and encouraged in such a way that you can be the next bridge to the next level of succession in our community. because I certainly have been, and I've been supported the entire time by the community, by the leaders. And so by doing that, my courses and my offerings have been able to go further than my teachers, and that is actually the sign of a good teacher. A good teacher teaches people who go beyond them. So all that all of that leads up to the question, what is permaculture, Matt? And many of you might have an idea of what it means, but there's a specific thing here. There's a history, there's a story, there there was a drink in here. I'll get it in a minute. So, it's permanent agriculture is how it started. It was perennial tree crops. This was inspiring, and this was the beginning. And it became permanent culture as we're going to see how that happened. So initially, this book, Permaculture 1, written by Bill Mollison and David Holmgren, was based off the thesis of David Holmgren, the 17-year-old graduating from college. And Bill Mollison was a professor working on a theory for everything, and they shared a flat where other people lived too, and they decided to work together. And Bill was like, "I'll get you published." And so David got to graduate from college at age 17 because he's a literal genius. He's still alive, literal genius. And then Bill saw the genius in David and decided to run with it and partner with him. And then it evolved from there. So Bill Mollison wrote what became a designer's manual. He also wrote Permaculture 2 and all this other stuff. But Designer's Manual was the book that became codified as the basis for the PDC. It's from 1989. Obviously, the 80s and 70s science, is 80s and 70s science. So there's wonderful things in here, powerful things in here. But there's also things that you're like, what? Like the soil science, right? And then David Holmgren took things step 20 years later. No, 15 years later, took things a step further. After he wrote this book, he lived. This was actually 5 years later. After that, the next book is 15 years later. So he made it real. He made an actual site. He did a whole book on the actual site. It's phenomenal. Um, like phenomenal, just beautiful. He has all his designs and like outcomes in it. So he wanted to prove it in a way that was not theoretical. And I love that book. And so Bill went with as gathering as many examples throughout history to gather together to make a gestalt. And then David wanted to make a concrete example of what is possible. And then he went even further and jumped out from the concrete to philosophical. And so permaculture, like David Holmgren's version, 2004, I believe, this changed everything. Uh, yeah, 2002, sorry. So technically 13 years later. So this was philosophy based. This took permaculture out of the just methodology and practice and made it a lens for thinking and evaluating. And this is really where I entered the picture, right? After this had been part of the Gestalt community understanding. And what's even wilder is now David Holmgren, the co-originator of permaculture, recommends my books. Again, a full circle moment, just absolutely wild. And I'm so honored and I love David. And in fact, I wouldn't have been able to write that book, and we'll talk more about that specifically later on in this series, without David's help. So he didn't directly help. It was his book that gave me the thinking and the lenses to see soil from a first principles, natural principles perspective. The Venn diagram I created for regenerative soil is just like the Venn diagram for permaculture. Just the first principles of soil, the baseline natural principles of soil. So my whole career, my way of thinking, my way of living has all been influenced by permaculture. And not only has it just influenced me, it's pushed me to further permacultural understanding to niches and areas that feedback loop into permaculture such that they're a benefit to the people who even created the concept. And And I learned from their books. I learned from Jeff Lawton. Jeff Lawton is absolutely a combination of David and Bill. So David has the boiled down, as we're going to talk about here, principles. Uh, Jeff does the same thing. And so Jeff, bases everything off the Bill's textbook, but then he also brings in the philosophical ideas and lens concept of David. I read all of it. I loved all of it. Um, and while I disagree with some of the wording sometimes, because, different cultures have different associations and connotations around different words, I understood where everyone was coming from, and I was able to build off of all their work and create something new at a greater depth. Because other than the 1989 textbook, there was no updated permaculture textbook that was cited and peer reviewed. I was able to create that. And so it all starts with ethics. And you may ask, what's the deal with the third ethic, Matt? Because the one you're about to show me is not the one that I read in Bill's book, not the one that I read in David's book. What's up with that? So let's get into the ethics. So the third ethic has changed over time. What I am doing with the third ethic is gathering all those, all of it under one roof in such a way that it honors all the core values involved, but gets rid of all the junk and the confusion and the politics and all the stuff because it doesn't need to be like that. So I have future care as the third ethic. So earth care and people care, those are the ethics everyone agrees upon. And then the third ethic has been a bunch of different things. But future care, long term investment, long term planning, management, monitoring, and adaptation is the best representation of what the third ethic should be. It's what, Starhawk uses. It's what, the African PDC came up with, I think 20 years ago. And someone who was talking about seven generations concept was talking to me about that as the third ethic. Thought it was brilliant. That's why I went with it initially. And then I've always just found more and more reinforcement the deeper I've gone. So earth care, people care, future care. Permaculture is simply a lens for viewing the world through nature's patterns, cycles, and systems to benefit all people, nature, and our collective future. It is also the best way to repair degraded, polluted, and damaged ecosystems and redesign current degenerative systems. No matter your skill set, age, or field of study, learning permaculture leads to lasting regenerative change. It's an ethical lens to guide observation, evaluation, decision making, and design. That's what it is. And keeping it that clean and clear is so important. So it covers everything. So, how? Well, principles. We start with the bedrock. Mollison began with these five explicit principles: work with nature. The problem is the solution. And in other words, whatever the problem is, the solution is indicated by it, right? Our soils are dead. Well, let's make them living again. There's all this erosion. Let's reverse erosion. There's a dead zone. That means we need to bring in more oxygen and process and sop up all the excess eutrophic nutrients. Number three, make the least change for maximum effect. This keeps us really responsible and keeps us observing. Number four, the yield of a system is theoretically unlimited because you can be stacking and you can be doing things not necessarily like, oh, I can get unlimited tomatoes. And you, I mean, if you treat your soil right every year, you could, right? That unlimited in that way. But also like unlimited in terms of like, oh, well, you could have classes using that same field. You could have animals move through and clean up the crop at the end of the season after you've harvested. You could like all, and then you're stacking yields, right? You could have a companion crop. You could all these things, and then everything gardens in nature. Everything is trying to help in its own way. Even the non-mycorrhizal plants that are destroying your soil, they're breaking down and they're reinforcing the garden for their preference, right? So they're gardening in their way, but they are destroying your soil. Like amaranth is gonna ruin soil. So Bill has way more than just his, right? He's got a lot actually, if you check out his book. And David's, there are these beautiful 12 ones, but again, language wise, fair share, who gets to determine that? Then you have, dictatorships, communism, planned market economies, you've got a ruling class. Those kinds of things happen when you determine that there needs to be fairness decided, right? And so a lot of people who have been through, like Eastern Europeans, Americans, react very strongly to the whole fair share thing, especially Eastern Europeans, where they like murdered farmers to redistribute their land because they felt farmers were growing too much food, and then everyone starved, right? So there's a lot of sensitivity around these words, but there's also a lot of really smart things. Use small, slow solutions. But that is just another way of saying make the least change for maximum effect. So it's language, right? And they're trying to get at things. And so I combine, expand, and then clarify with my work. And so principal observation, that's one of the things I bring to the table. Reduce waste and pollution, restoration, or actually, sorry, this is one of those principles that is not listed, but that's Bill's, and it's also human. This is another one from Bill's book. But then I have tons more. I have the principle of choice, the principle of empowerment, principle of autonomy, because I'm a public school educator. I've seen how, control and dictatorship in a lack of autonomy is just poisoning our kids and our culture. And so I brought all those to the table, and then I created social principles. And smile first, right? Sounds like me, right? And so I designed it for everyone in mind. And actually, I had this whole thing where we had permaculture education principles, social principles. I had all this public commentary and a public page, and built these things up in the public with people's feedback. And so, the reason I did that is because it's about building community. These are community focused principles. Be open, be local, be patient, be self reliant, which means be prepared so you can help others. Because how are your communities doing? How are your local communities? They're pretty much destroyed. Yeah. The local economy's gone, the local cohesion is gone. Um, we need to rebuild that if we want to have strong communities again. And the way to do it is following those principles. So there's many more principles. There's not enough time. Check out the ebook. There's tons in there. And there's patterns and cycles of nature. So we've got the principles, and then we have the patterns and cycles of nature. So there's the tree pattern. We see it in our brains. We see it in the way fungi grows. This tree dendritic pattern. We see it in roots, mushrooms, mycelium, and spirals. Spirals are everywhere from the universe down to the way water moves. It is a way that they gather and condense energy. And then edge effect between two different areas, you've got a combination of those two areas, populations and effects. And so at the ocean, you've got the combination of sea animals, coastal animals, and land animals all meeting. So it's this exponential equation of growth, and you have a lot of turnover and a lot of edge effect. That's why putting edge, like a fence, edge, like a forest, like tree line, edge, like like a berm. All these things create more diversity. The soil food web, that's a pattern. The way heat and cooling works, that's a pattern. The way the sun works, that's a pattern. Microclimates, these are all patterns. The way nitrogen fixation can work, this is obviously the permaculture orchard. This is our good friend Stefan Sokobiak. This is his pattern, and there's so many more. And then there's frameworks, how to organize and arrange these patterns. And so frameworks, it can be very simple, but it also could be much more complex, like holistic management. And then you apply that to like keyline scale of permanence with holistic management, and you get the Regrarians platform where you start with your climate first and then analyze it. Then you start with your geography first and then analyze it. Topo maps, right? Then you look at your water, then you look at your access, then you look at forestry, then you look at buildings, then fencing, then soil, then economy, then energy. It's that succession of understanding and planning that nests into each other like the Russian nesting dolls. And Keyline is one of those patterns and one of those frameworks that allows us to understand where and how and what to do. But it is again a lens. All these are lenses for making decisions and understanding things as they are. And this is all in the book that you all have access to. You got the ebook, a 400 plus page ebook. So there's many types of frameworks. It could be applied to water, applied to this is the first permaculture book that actually addressed oceans and coastlines, riparian areas. So it was my pleasure to expand permaculture to address the whole system of nature, not just our backyard gardens, and also scaling up to have permaculture lenses for looking at ag, regenerative ranching, restoration of land, all of this. And so more frameworks equal more lenses. And lessons to be learned. So what else though? Well, you'll get an incredible map and skill sets to interpret it. It's a big part of permaculture and taking that map and making a strategic plan and a trajectory. So what happens if you go out into the wilderness without a map? I think we know the answer, right? You go out into the wilderness without a map, you're going to get lost, right? Right. So, what happens in life if you don't make any plans? Someone else's plan ends up dictating your life, right? So, we have to write things down. We have to make some plans. That's a big part of permaculture. This is my first permaculture map. I made this for Jeff. I handed it in. I think within days of him announcing that he'll accept, because I was so ready. I loved this. And this is from the permaculture. This is from the ebook, right? This is Daniel Halsey's work, Southwest Food Forests, unbelievable. Southwest Forest Garden, excuse me. And this mapping allows us to really understand our soil in such a different way. Look at the pH mapping there, huh? Amazing work. And this is Jeff Lawton's site. Those maps. Mapping is a huge part of permaculture. This is a map I did on 90 acres in Sonoma County above a vineyard to restore and protect against fire. And there's a lot of methods, there's a lot of techniques. You can help a lot of people, you can do a lot of good. But understanding these simple concepts are how we do it. The swale, the food forest, earthworks. So this is the Los Plateau. For just $14 a hectare per year, they greened an area larger than the size of Belgium. 500,000 square kilometers, right? So this is totally possible. And this was the US, this was World Bank, and this was China. This was a long time ago. So they completely know how to fix all of the desertification, which is climate change. Desertification is the loss of the current system, the current climate, whether it's Mediterranean or brittle or something else. It turns it into completely unusable land. But we can reverse that. And Neil Speckman has done that in Saudi Arabia. So he did stone, right? Stone little check dams. And then he did giant swales that within 3 years went from pure nothing, dust, dirt, to full ground cover. And this whole area is completely restored, and it's beautiful grasses. It's always holding water now, in the surf in the soil, and this is a miracle. But it only happened because they applied permaculture. Neil was taught one on one by Jeff. Jeff actually came and set it all up with him initially. So there's many types of earthworks and dams. If you want to do a dam, that workbook literally has all the information you need. Yeah. And so much more. Whether you want to do a wallapini, this is a real thing, it really works, or start doing power plants that you just use compressed air, no electricity. But you can have it run turbines that can generate electricity, or you could just use compressed air through machines and just not use combustion. So there's so many things you can do. This is an actual power plant that was operational for over 70 years. It is such good technology. It only was repaired once or twice. Um, yeah, we have the ability to do this today. And like I said, it's everything. Floating gardens, right? They're real. So applying these techniques, applying this understanding is so powerful. Chinampas, these floating islands have become full islands over the years. And Jeff Lawton's map becomes a reality as well. Uh, Fukuoka, all these different examples are all just examples of permaculture. And that's why these amazing people from Jeff Lawton to Larry Korn, who is the editor for Fukuoka's books, they've given their images and also their time to review my work so that I could take it to the next level and showcase how all these things connect down to the principles. So there's too much to list here, but check out the ebook. All these images, all these stories are in the ebook for this book. Okay? I've given it to you. This is a $75 book. The ebook is, you know, easily worth as much as that or more. It's a complete game changer, and you now have it. And I'm going to do a giveaway of this soon, today. So, in practice, though, what does it look like for you, Matt? Well, let's talk about the Peruvian impossible speckled corn. So, it wasn't easy to do this. They're photoperiodic, meaning that they require less than 12 hours of sunlight a day. They're from, you know, Peru in the Highland Valley. Corn that's 9,000 foot elevation up to like 12. And so when I brought them down to 2,000 feet, I bought these seeds from Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. Do you guys see what's going on here? The corn is on top with the tassels and the ears. So that's corn and a crown on top because it's freaking out and it's going back. It's roguing. And it also a lot of it just went straight to wheat lacoche. And so you're like, you got like one kernel there, Matt. Uh-oh. Right? But, I did figure it out. Okay. It I was the first person to figure it out in all of North America. Scientists and university growers and the experts couldn't figure this out because they didn't understand permaculture. They're not respecting nature. They just think they can do whatever they want. You know what I mean? These are the chemical bros, right? And so I figured it out by just following nature. And that's the thing is all we have to do is just start listening to nature and we'll start having breakthroughs. It's really what today is about. So this happened because I thought it through. But how, Matt? How, right? Well, remember I said they couldn't handle their water, so they were like super tall. Some of the times they had the crown of the corn on top along with the tassels, you know what I mean? And all up there. And so you have the actual, release of pollen happening right there on it. So it actually was pretty darn good in terms of that. But I thought about it and I was like, if they are photoperiodic and I understand energy flow, because I teach this sort of thing, this is from the book. This is also from the book. We talk about energy, right? Sun angle, intensity, sun path. And I realized if I planted it beneath this oak tree on the dark side of the hill, it would only have 4 hours of sun. Can you guys see that? So the oak tree would be blocking, and this is on a hill. So there's a whole hill to the left of this photo. There's a whole hill blocking everything and two buildings. So the sun was not able to hit this area directly. And so I reasoned it was joules and not time. So they say 12 hours of sun, you just need that, right? No, you need the same amount of energy. So this is how I was able to grow winter crops underneath 3 to 4 layers of canopy in my food forest and get beautiful giant cauliflower heads because they didn't bolt because it was cooler and shadier. So in their minds, it's we're fall, baby. It's dark. And so it is joules. It is the amount of light throughout the day, total amount, rather than the time period of like cutting off at 6 hours or something. Afternoon sun, partial shade. That's how it was. And then the next year, after I saved that seed, it was 30 days earlier. Seeds will adapt for you. You just got to adapt them to the place that you're in. Got to save those seeds, folks. It's really that simple and easy. You just got to do the work. So, what about those soil temperatures, Matt? It seemed a little crazy, the 140. I know John Kemp's talking about it. That means that the top 2 inches are probably 110. This is actually 1 inch deep. So my soil is hotter than John Kemp was talking about. Okay, and so not watered. Watered but bare is only 115. Yeah, water did not cool it down. And when I saw that, I realized I had to add mulch. And I did ramial mulch. See the stickies, little sticks. And that's what lowered it from 140F to 76F, watering and mulch. And so, what was I doing? I was applying the principle of observation and food forests, like forests in general. Forest floors are not bare. And I'm designing a food forest. So, I'm not going to leave that forest floor bare. I'm going to follow nature. Pretty simple. And then the right seeds. So I threw these seeds on the ground. I never watered it. It just grew like this. And this is 3 months in. It's still green, no water. And this is horizontally red Aztec spinach. This is it drying down. And there was even some orange giant amaranth that wasn't so giant, but still made good seed. So how did I know? Well, there's these things in permaculture called climate analogs. So the same color as you on this map has the same plants potentially. Obviously, climate analogs have mismatches that aren't perfect. Some plants, can't handle this or that or the other in the soil type that they're in, right? Because soil types are soil types, minerals are minerals, but the temperature, the moisture, the climate analog, you can find a lot of overlap. This is why California, Mediterranean areas grow grapes really well, similar to Italy, right? So permaculture understanding made all of this possible. So abundance is simply a byproduct of alignment with nature. And I see this in my own life. I really do. And, I want to ask you the question, what if? What if you grew in abundance? How would that feel? And what if you developed an abundant mindset? What if you approached everything in your life with that mindset and you started seeing abundance flow in all aspects of your life? Because that's really what permaculture is about. It's not just about gardening. Gardening is a byproduct of your understanding. And the abundance you grow is a byproduct of your understanding. So, permaculture wants to level you up as a person and a member of the larger natural world such that all these benefits become a byproduct of your understanding and your abundant mindset. I am so happy that you guys are here. Uh, I know you can do this because I've done it and I did it in really challenging circumstances and I did it really under the gun. My wife kept getting cancer, and then every year as a school teacher, they kept erasing the gains I would create in my earning. So you have this like chart, and every year you go up in earning, right? They made it so that your healthcare costs would go up higher than that every year. So I went from like 0 a month for healthcare, free healthcare as a teacher, and then it became $700 a month. And so it erased all the gains I was gaining. So I was financially going to go bankrupt unless I figured it out. And so it was in me unlocking other people's potential and opening the door and path for them that allowed me to do the same for myself. But that is what permaculture is. It's the facilitation of greater expression of life in abundance in all manifestations. So I know you can do this. I know it's possible and I know it's exciting and transformative. So if you want to learn more, stay tuned for the live Q&A, which we're going to do right now. We're going to do some giveaways. Got some fun stickers that I'm going to be wedging inside, some books here. I've got we're going to do some giveaways every time we do this. So if you can't join us, we're watching on replay or something, join us next week, okay? So next week is designed for resilience with permaculture. I'll give it away to a degree. Abundance creates resilience. You can't have resilience without it. So we're going to go into what that actually means in actual practice so that you can set these things up in your life for an abundance and resilience that starts from the self to the site to the neighborhood to the larger local community to the bioregion because that is our zone of influence and we need to understand how to make those things resilient because permaculture just makes it so easy. I want to thank you for being here. I'm Matt Powers. Grow abundantly, learn daily, and live regeneratively. Let us dive into your questions now. Thank you for being here. How was that? Let me know down in the chat. Yeah, Patrice, nice to see you. I love your smile. Thank you for being here. Hey, William, good to see you on here. Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you all for participating. I hope this brought you clarity and hope and insight into what is possible. Because for me, I always go back to these lenses. It's how I evaluate what I'm doing, it's how I evaluate what I should be doing, how to do it better, and also how to create things. If we want to create a new plan, a new design, new business, a new method, a new operation, a new farm, all these lenses are what I apply. And it's that thinking that has made me successful as an entrepreneur with my books, with my courses, with the way I design everything, with the sites that I've been on. All of it's all one thing to me. And I think that's also part of the power of it is everything can relate to it. So it reinforces your understanding once you get into that feedback loop and you learn deeper and deeper and deeper. And so that's just nature, right? Right? It goes all the way down, right? And so I'm just so grateful for permaculture, for the thinking that it has provided, for the incredible community. Someone asked, what is a PDC? So a PDC is a permaculture design certification. It's what I got from Jeff Lawton, and it is essentially just drawing a map, showing that you understood what the lessons taught you inside the course. The problem with that, it's good, but any educator will tell you that's rewarding the wrong stage of the process. Just the map doesn't mean anything unless you make it real. And so as an educator, I immediately saw this. And for years, I built up steam and worked on myself and worked on my site and worked on all these materials so that when I created a course, it'd be advanced PDC, meaning simply we make it real and we reward people for turning their PDC into a reality. So their map becomes a reality, and that's how they get their certification, right? It's very clean and clear. But it also rewards the right thing so that people then are doing it and then they can spread the doing of it. And then people are asking, well, what was your project? Like, oh, my project was my home site, or my project was a community garden, or my project was the restoration of this mountain, and it changes the dynamic fundamentally, and it has. Since I created the advanced permaculture design concept, there's been a huge adoption. The thing was, I I could have called it like a PDC or something like that and just kept going with that terminology. But early on, Penny Livingston asked me not to change the PDC in any way. So I honor them, and they can keep teaching it however the way they want. But I have a master's degree in education and developmental and educational psychology, and I know rewarding people for doing half the work and not the actual work is actually going to make it so that they do less work. And this has been the number one complaint that Jeff and all these other people, including Bill Mollison, talked about was that they taught so many people and so few people actually did the actions. They taught so many people, gave out so many PDCs, and they got a lot of maps and very little gardens and very little web like homesteads and food forests built. And so I was like, you got to reward the right thing. And so that was one of my contributions. So it so let's dive into your questions now, and then let's do some giveaways. What's actually let's just start with some giveaways. So, what is one new thing that you learned today? For a book and a sticker, and I'm going to sign the book for you. So these books, they they need love. They got dinged when they got shipped to me. And I don't sell dinged books. I don't know if you guys know that. So I'm going to be giving away, and they're perfect. They're perfect copies other than the dinged corner. And so they need a home. Are you guys willing to take these $75 books with slightly dinged things into your home and give them love? I personally buy used books and damaged books sometimes because it's like who's gonna love them? And I love books. I don't know if you guys know I love books. So let's find this book a good home today. You'll buy ding book. You're funny. No, but seriously though, like I've got like boxes and boxes of ding books. So I'm gonna start giving them away. And so here we go. This is a 400 plus page book. And if you guys haven't downloaded the ebook, download the ebook because you can immediately keyword search it. And if you haven't been doing research in the past 20 years and you grew up in the Dewey Decimal System, the ability to keyword search a PDF document is like world changing, unbelievable. So that's why I give it out. I want you to be able to use it as a resource. I also feel like it's all this stuff like really needs to circulate as much as possible, especially because it's standards based, especially because it's the first peer reviewed permaculture textbook, and it's all referenced and cited. So this is a gift to the world. I started giving away the ebook 6 months after I published it, and it was 2.5 years of work because I feel so strongly about what's in here. And yeah, it's my gift. So check that out, download it, and then let's see what you guys learned. What's something that you learned today? Saved trained seeds is a must. Yes, Victoria. Tara says, "What a gift you've created." Oh, thank you. Kurt says, "Learn more about how permaculture came about, the relationship homegrown Mollison and Lawton." Yeah, and what's wild is Darren Doherty, the Keyline guy that I was talking about, Regrarian's platform guy, the guy that's now working on Kind Harvest with his courses with John Kempf. He's the other protege of Bill Mollison. So the two proteges were Jeff Lawton and Darren. So you can trace it all. It's all there, and I've interviewed them all about all of this, and it's an incredible, incredible story. Darren's full story, family story, is actually in my course, and so uh, they all help contribute, and all were peer reviewers on this. So except for Bill, Bill was too old at that point. But yeah, it's just an amazing gift that I got to create and co-create with so many people. Something I learned, your book has oceans in it. You used community support to name the updated principle. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Amanda. And it was really out of the community that all this was born because I did crowdfunding. So I asked everyone to co-create it with me and give me advice and to help me create what the actual community needed. Those principles, feedback loop, nature, ecosystemic thinking, right? that's what success is. It really is. And that's why permaculture like leads to success in like a business, leads to success in community restoration and local community harmony. It's awesome. And oh man, yeah, yeah. Thank you for being here. Where do we go to download the ebook, says Al? So when you signed up, an email was sent to you, and it has a link in there. And when I do the replay for this, I'll send out another email, and there'll be below the video, I'll put it again. So I would love your book. Yeah, Katerina, thank you for being here. The training seeds concepts, it is a genius way to have healthy, thriving plants, says Laura. Oh, thank you, Laura. Laura, I want to give this to you because there's so many other things in here that I know will help you. Thank you for being here and participating. Email me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com. All one word, all lowercase, Matt Powers Soil, and it's MATT. So send me your address, and I will give you, I will send you a book. All right. Let's do another one, right? Let's do another one. Okay. See, yeah, this one's even less dinged. Look at that. This one's like almost primo. So, yeah, it's just that's all it is. All right. And these books take, these books are they're all I mean, these books are all full color. These books are wild. And yes, they're updated. This is the third edition, folks. So, this is stuff that even is not in your ebook because that's the second edition. So, let's do it. So keyword search is the way to go, says Kawanda. Thank you for being here, Kawanda. I saw your nod. I love that. That I am super, super out of tune with nature, says D. Oh man, D, well, you are in the right place. It is a healing process to become back to nature. I lived in the city for like 7 years and I got so sick. I was 130 pounds. I'm 180 now. And so you can imagine, I'm not like people meet me and they're like, how's that possible? Right? It's because the city was so unhealthy. It was so damaging. I was so out of tune with nature that when I went to California, when I went to those foothills, it was such a powerful transformation for me. Started gardening, I got into nature, it healed me. I am so much healthier today than I was 20 years ago. So much healthier. And it's wild. I'm in my about to turn 43, you know, and I've got an 18-year-old, I got a 14-year-old, but my 22, 23-year-old self was so unhealthy. I would be able to just, in any kind of measurement of health, outrun, out muscle, outthink, and out enthusiasm my 23-year-old self. And it started with following what was most natural in permaculture and applying permaculture concepts to health, permaculture concepts to soil, permaculture concepts to my business. That changed everything. And so a lot of people are going to talk about permaculture. Um, we take ding books over here, says Josh. I love it, Josh. All right, Josh, I'm going to send you this. Send me your shipping address, Josh, at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com. But yeah, I just want you to know that all these things tie back for me to permaculture. And it's very simple, it's very clean, it's like how does nature do it, right? What's most natural here? How do I honor all the people involved and respect nature at the same time in such a way that it builds into the future? We all want the world to be a better place for our kids and for everyone else's kids too, because you don't know who your kids are going to marry. So you want everyone to be doing better, okay? We all do. We know it. Once it's said, we know it. And the way to do that is alignment with nature. We want the watersheds restored. We want the water to be clean. We want the air to be clean. This is all permacultural. And the way we develop feedback loops on a community level so that caring people and earth care are tied to the actual landscape in such a way we get the feedback. We see clearly and we make better choices. Super simple, super clean and clear. And that's why I love permaculture. It literally is, and I said at the beginning, it is the core designing principle and lens by which I lead my life, by which all my success has been predicated. I asked the same question. I asked, what's most natural here with soil? What is nature trying to tell us? And so I started doing higher level testing, and asking, well, what is nature trying to tell us here? Instead of imposing, because that's a big thing in permaculture. We don't impose. We let nature tell us what's right for the site, and we let it speak to us. Not like not like in any woo-woo metaphysical sense. No, no, no. There's actually a carrying capacity for every single thing that you want to do. There's a certain number of cattle or sheep or something that the land could actually handle, and in a certain methodology that it could handle it within. And then when you go past that, you have, I'm frozen. Oh, there we go. And if you go past that, you get Australia, right? Where the sheep just denuded the landscape. We need to find the right methods, the right pressure to make it regenerative because it exists. The right cattle or the right animal and the right level of pressure actually builds soil and restores landscapes. The right management, the right everything. There's a Goldilocks range to everything ecosystemically on the earth. And when we respect that and we're in tune to that, that's when things start building up and accumulating. That's what abundance is. So if we look at where did the soils come from? Oh, they come from an abundance cycle of plants doing photosynthesis, generating soil organic matter that generates soil. Where did all the clean water come from? All these pure lakes and rivers and everything is accumulation. The accumulation of water in the landscape and in the aquifers, in the subsoils, causes springs, causes all these other things to happen such that they're a symptom of abundance. And that's what nature does. That's what nature wants to do. And what's happened is people have abused nature to suck all the little bit out. And then they went so far, they're draining the aquifers and then draining the subaquifers and right? Instead of respecting the landscape and being like, wow, we need to go upstream or uphill and create earthworks that recharge our aquifers so that we have an abundance of water always. And we are living off the abundance of water. It's just like with any sort of investment, you want to have the principal stay and then have the interest based off of it be what you live off of as your profit, right? This is what like a lot of people, are aspiring to do. That's what like their retirement plan is half the time, right? Nature is that. It's this huge investment that time and the natural system has put in. And then all these different systems that were degenerative drain not just the interest, but they drain the principle. And so they drain the actual fertility of the whole system. So there is no abundance. We have to restore these things to actually have that abundance. So that's why we have to do the work. That's why we have to invest. And when we do, it gives back. That's the amazing thing about all this is all of it's provable to you, to yourself, and you can test it and see it, and it's profitable. So healing the earth is profitable, and it heals communities, heals waterways. It's just amazing. And a lot of people, for me, I was a doomer, to be honest. I was fighting for my wife, fighting for all these kids, and I'm like, there's a mountain slide, and I'm like trying to block things as they come down the mountain slide. All these kids are coming through. No one's getting an education. They get some of it in my course, but all the other classes, you know what I mean? They're being robbed. And so it's like I'm doing my best and it's like trying to stop a mountain slide. But when I saw what permaculture could do and how me spreading permaculture could help so many more people, and then all of us together, we're, we're not even like reacting to the landslide. Now we're going above the landslide and we're terraforming it so the landslides don't happen anymore. And it's such a great time to be alive because we finally have the science, we have the information, we have the ability to respond. And we're also at a great moment too where people are being able to identify the greenwashers and they're able to see because they're able to do it and prove it to themselves and recognize that it's not about the my car. It's not about it's about literally protecting the coastlines from all this runoff. It's about no longer using phosphates and nitrogen fertilizer on lawns and largely erasing it from all of farming. That's what I'm doing with regenerative soil, guys. I'm erasing all the eutrophic releases of fertilizers by helping them fix their soil so they don't need those things. We just need to address each of these things and we can reverse desertification. We can reverse the drying out of our aquifers. We can do all these different things and at the same time make a living, same time have a meaningful life and show integrity paths to the next generation. So for me as an educator, it was the win-win-win. And that's why I dove all the way into permaculture. And that's why I've been throughout all the things I'm doing, whether it's microscopy or soil or even unstoppable enthusiasm, right? All of those tie in together into this what's most natural here? How do we make the world a better place? Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. What questions do you guys have? Yeah, Helen says things are not heavy when you can carry them close to your heart. Beautiful. I'm familiar with those kids you were teaching. Mad respect, Matt, says Ava. Thank you. It's all possible, says Bruce. Yeah, yeah. People are sharing concepts. I love it. And methods. It's all accumulation. Yeah, that's what abundance is. You're so welcome. Will you have a recording of this that I can send to someone who really needs to see at least the first part where you talked about this here in Nevada's? Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be digging deeper into concepts and methods. A lot of people get really caught up. I saw someone says, not enough doing, Matt. This is a waste of my time. Well, the reality is, the mental side and the thinking side is actually the valuable part because I teach fluency around that so that you can see the methods, why they work, and then you can make your own. My students notoriously are people creating new methods, notoriously creating new strategies and making discoveries because I focus on the fluency of critical thinking in permaculture, the full taxonomy of cognition, so that people actually can do it. And if I just taught methods, I mean, you can get methods all day long on YouTube, but just read the comments underneath the methods on YouTube and you'll see it doesn't work for everyone in all contexts because they're methods. You need the understanding to know how to adapt, apply, and remix or mash up or translate, right? And so I really focus on teaching people how to think at a higher level and think with the permaculture mindset. And that's really why my programs are so different. Yes, we go through methods like crazy, but I first teach you so you can understand those methods and then improvise with those methods, break them apart, put them back together in combination with other methods. Because without that understanding, you're just mimicking, you're just parroting, uh, and and I've seen what that turns into. Just go look at YouTube and read those comments, and you'll see people who are mad because it didn't work for them, because they were just passing around methods. And like I said, once you understand it, you can go to YouTube and understand all the methods and be like, that part I'm going to take, that part will work for me, this part, because you'll have the discernment. So I care about critical thinking, discernment, and true understanding so that people can actually adapt these things and make businesses that work. And also be able, nature's always changing and adapting. That's why there's new microbes and new fungi constantly being discovered because nature's still doing its evolution and adaptation thing. And so we need to be adaptive and in alignment with nature to gain understanding and then react properly. So I'm so happy that you all are here. And we'll of course cover more methods and we'll dive into all these actual hard examples, case studies and whatnot. But if you don't understand it, then the methods actually could hurt you rather than help you. So that's why I do it the way I do it. That's why my programs are different from everyone else's. My programs are 3 times longer than any other program online for permaculture that you'll find, because I really want to make sure that that fluency is there and also the diversity of example. I mean, the fact that there was no riparian area, streams, rivers, lakes, and then ocean, coastal information for anyone, it didn't exist until that book. It's pretty critical, right? And so you got to do the thinking in order to see the full picture. I appreciate you guys being here, and I can't wait for the next section too. All right, so we'll do more giveaways. Next time we'll have a course giveaway, and actually, you know what? I'm gonna do a goodie bag giveaway right now. So, what's one thing that you're gonna do differently now because of today? And I'm gonna send you a goodie bag. I've got a few extra goodie bags from our future. So that'll have EM, mycorrhizal fungi, azospirillum amendment, which partners with mycorrhizal fungi. It'll have biochar. It'll have special discounts and stickers galore, and a bumper sticker and like fun things. So I'm going to give that to you when you share something that you're going to do differently now, because action's what it's all about. It's about taking the information and making it real. Sherry says, save seeds and train seeds. Yes, yes. Kurt says, train those seeds. Karen says, will EM1 help you with fungal gnats? It could, depending on the reason that you have fungal gnats. It might be more the case that you need to focus on the bottom 2 layers of the plant health pyramid. But we can get into that another time. But yeah, it could, because it could be fundamental to photosynthesis and acquisition of minerals and a bunch of different things, handling of nitrates that's causing that. But it also could be just you're lacking in certain key minerals. I'm going to think differently now, says Bruce. Yes. Again, the sun per se versus a more refined analysis of energy. Catherine Ellen von Stackelberg. Thank you. Thank you. Already seed savings, says Deke. Yeah. Continue to practice and improve, says Bully Man. Thank you for being here. Also training more seeds, says Barbara June. Hey, Barbara, thank you for being here. Rashawn says training seeds is now what I will do. Tootsie says inoculate my compost with EM. Yeah. Trading seeds with people in my country, says D. L says no naked soil. Yes. Make plans and put them down on paper, says Susan. Yes, Susan. Susan, I want to send you a goodie bag. Email me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com and I'll send that to you guys. So great to see so many familiar faces. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending the time with me today. I will see you all next week for our second in the series. We'll do more giveaways. Keep growing. I'm Matt Powers. Grow abundantly, learn daily, and live regeneratively. I'm going to mute you guys. Thank you again.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Fired.
Much love.
Good to see everybody. Thank you, Matt.
Woohoo!
You guys are so welcome. Have a wonderful day.
Keep growing.
Thank you, Matt.
Keep growing.